...2005 was quite a dope-ass year. I'm sure I've already gone over what memorable titles and franchises were kicked off that year, so I don't really think we need to go over them again. Just know that on a scale of 1 to awesome, it was super rad. Enter Double Fine Productions. Oh my god, my armrest just fell out from under me. Enter Double Fine Productions and the walking joke Tim Schafer. Say what you will about his personal shit and everything that came after being, for the most part, poorly thought out, their first outing was a critical success and an absolute commercial failure. You know how it goes, I'm sure. Paid-off reviewer gives incredible praise to an absolute shit product that aligns with their politics or some such social bullshit, and the game just kind of fades into obscurity, existing as nothing more than a punchline. But what if, and stick with me on this one, what if 15 fucking years ago, some semblance of integrity still existed in the hobbyist journosphere and things like cult classics came around? What if there was this time when being loved by journalists and mostly passed over by the gaming public was just kind of an unfortunate risk and not really a sign of bigger issues at play? What if there was a time when artists with a vision were taking massive risks to break into a field instead of being propped up by hipsters who just wanted a blowjob from them? What if I missed something that was straight up my alley for a decade and a half? Well, we'd have Psychonauts. Y'all might think that was a joke, but my armrest actually just popped right off the peg here. It's a shitty chair. Kind of didn't last very long. You are Rasputin, a fugitive of the circus who just so happens to be a little psychic boy who wants to drink heavily and become a horrible wizard advisor to the Russian royal family. Oh, and also become a psychonaut, an elite member of an even more elite task force that does psychic shit. So Raz runs away from the circus and goes to camp, where he has just one day to earn enough merit badges to prove himself to said elite task force and win the heart of his lifelong love interest, some girl he just met 2 whole minutes ago. And as every movie has ever told us, things tend to not go so well at camp. But instead of becoming a weird teenage hornfest ending in a bloodbath, a PTSD-riddled psychic kidnaps children and amputates their brains.
Kidnapping human children is good.
Oh look! It's approved by Hollywood. Raz saves everyone and everything just kind of goes well. Yeah, it's pretty bog-standard bullshit, but it's not the simplified outline of the story that matters, it's the way it's told that counts. Being that Psychonauts came out in an age where brain-dead children weren't ready to just throw their parents' money at everything, it had to bring a level of creativity and engagement with enough personality to stand out from its peers. And quite frankly, they do. It's not the story they're telling that matters, but once again, how it's told. Every character has a distinct and well-directed personality. You don't spend much time with each character, and sure, a lot of them boil down to tropes, but they're written and played in such a manner that they never come off as one-dimensional. Each character is memorable and distinct, even if some are just kind of jokes. Roaming the campgrounds and speaking to other kids brings just as much enjoyment as speaking with the major characters. Everyone has a place to fill, and they make it their own. From the middle school bully to the no-nonsense 1960s-style spies, you never truly have a major media figure you can point to and say they're just a ripoff of that. The writing and performances don't just separate them from each other, but from the properties that inspired them. The campgrounds and surrounding areas you explore, while taking on a more surreal design, are still very grounded and feel more realistic. Where the game shines, however, is in the individual chapters wherein Raz enters people's minds in order to either gain training or sort out their mental issues in order to progress whatever task he's currently on. The simply surreal becomes the blatantly absurd as you explore people's minds, and learn just how fractured their thoughts can truly be. Starting simply with the former service member's mind being a constant battleground and breaking down to the complete mental mess of a paranoid man deep in the grips of insanity, each character's mind has its own themes. The themes don't just dictate the color of the levels, but even the tasks you perform and the context of individual platforming segments. Non-contiguous spaces help create the sense that you're exploring the compartmentalized psyche of these characters, and the way the landscape is broken up or built together gives a nice experience as to the ways in which they think. Take, for example, the mind of the former security guard. He's pretty much entirely insane, paranoid of the government spying on him, and harboring a latent personality of some kind of terrorist known only as the Milkman. His segment is a neighborhood overrun with spooks posing as everyday people and strange Girl Scouts roaming the roads. The cul-de-sac is broken up, isolated, and the familiar becomes labyrinthine and treacherous. Neighbors spy on you, the strange girls whisper to bushes, and nothing is really as it seems. The layout also plays with space very well and in manners that wouldn't be explored again until Mario Galaxy wanted to play with gravity. It's a standout segment that really drives home their desire for every single segment to have its own philosophies and ideas. Sure, some of them are simple, like the training missions or hitting switches and watching a play, but when you're essentially playing Risk against Napoleon or going through an Austin Powers style after party, it's easy to understand how the game managed to grip people. I can't stress enough how much personality is shoved into everything, and with the absurdist humor, it's hard to tell what's going to come next, and probably about 90% of it lands spectacularly. That other 10% we'll get to in its due time. The game is an action platformer. The combat is overall pretty simple, relying more on platforming aspects. Raz has an arsenal of tricks to navigate his surroundings, and the design of the levels complement his abilities. The levitate ability, for instance, allows you to run on a ball that improves your jump, and the designers added segments that help the player understand and play with the physics of the ability. For most of the game, you're using most of your arsenal of skills. Combat is really where the game doesn't shine, however. You get a 3-punch combo, mind bullets, and pyrokinesis. While punching just puts you in range of being hit back and enemy hit stun leaves a lot to be desired, you're going to be using the mind bullets more often. Setting shit on fire with your mind has a lengthy charge up, but at lower levels will allow you to break up enemy groups, and at higher levels lets you set the entire group on fire. Boss fights are mostly nothing to write home about. Each is unique and has a great design, but mostly all boiled down to either running away until you get your chance to hit them, or just spamming the brain beams. They're more of punctuations placed at the end of segments, not representing any real challenge, but they're at least not boring. Excepting, of course, for the Mexican-inspired segment where you fight the same mini-boss 4 times where you just hit them, let them recover, hit them again, and repeat until they're dead. 4 goddamn times! The controls are tight, and except for some weird delays when jumping onto ropes, everything is completely responsive. You never really feel like you don't have control of Rasputin. The camera hasn't entirely aged too well, however, and it becomes difficult in some segments to gauge your jumps, but that's more of a relic of the past than anything else. Overall, the gameplay is stellar. It's very linear, but the multiple tools you have access to, the level design, and the personality put into everything keeps it from being boring or mind-numbing.
Hey, hold on a second.
Oh, hello, oppressive and unrelenting reminder of the inevitable. What's up?
You know there's a sequel coming, don't you?
Wasn't that supposed to have come out like 2 fucking years ago and has been pushed back to, this year? Anno Diaboli 2020 with 0 updates since June of last year?
Don't bring logic into this.
Well, thank you for interrupting the video for ostensibly nothing.
And Lubber, this video sucks. You got no jokes and nothing interesting to say. You're just floundering in the flotsam on this one. I read your notes. You're just putting off what we all know is coming.
Well, thank you, oppressive and unrelenting figment of my ever-fracturing psyche. But before you go thinking it's all sunshine and milk Molotovs, the game does have some issues. For instance, half the powers are worthless. You receive the shield ability and it is only ever used for scripted moments dedicated to its use. This involves a segment right after you receive it, the following boss fight, and a luchador mini-boss that forces you to use it. It has no real utility outside of those segments. You have a confusion grenade, which you unlock just before another luchador boss fight that requires you to use it on said luchador, and then on that chapter's boss fight, and then it stops having any utility afterward. Clairvoyance allows you to see things from other people's perspective. This is used in the chapter it's unlocked to get a door code, solve a puzzle, and then has no utility for the rest of the game. It shows you how people see from their perspective, but outside of a gag or two, it's completely fucking worthless. Some of the tasks you need to perform are also poorly telegraphed. Keeping with clairvoyance, to solve this puzzle, you have to hold the crow feather, which you get very early in the game and never comes up again, use clairvoyance on this rock, walk through this gate, and then that somehow opens this other gate. I figured this out entirely by accident because absolutely nothing hints that this is what you would be needing to do. So yeah, a lot of powers are just empty filler. But that's not the only empty filler. You collect psychic arrowheads, and these act as currency. There's a shop in the game that sells you a couple of items, 2 of which are required purchases to progress, 1 is just helpful. To get the second required purchase, you absolutely have to buy the first, and then arrowheads aren't required for the rest of the game, except for like, maybe 50 in the most boring chapter? To make matters worse, you reach this point of them becoming useless somewhere around 3 or 4 hours into the game, which is just peachy. Then comes the figments. To say figments are littered throughout chapters is kind of an understatement. Chapters are made absolute landfills out of the figments, and collecting them levels up Raz. Levels give you extra health, unlock powers, and improve them, but there's thousands of them, and they're just sitting out there for the taking. They just create this level of tedium and clutter that is just abso-fucking-lutely awful to look at. They are clutter, nothing more. And to top off all of that, there are areas that go entirely unused. I accidentally ran into this segment of the camp and left it thinking I'll explore it when I reach that point in the story that I'm directed to go there. And that point never comes. Entire segments that serve only to fill out the collectathon bullshit. No thanks, me are good. Then comes the emotional baggage. Find baggage tag. Collect bag. Find all of them to nothing. Psychonauts is absolutely filled to the brim with collectathons, unused powers, entirely unused areas, and just a massive amount of clutter that really begins to drag the game down when taking the picture in as a whole. Also doesn't help that the final bosses just get kaiju power, wait for it to recharge, hit boss a couple of times, wait for power to recharge, requiring no input from the player other than just don't die. The game uses a lives system. Run out of lives, get spit out of the subject's mind. But when you jump back in, you're just back to where you were 2 seconds ago. Death contains no real penalty, and losing all of your lives contains no penalty of any kind. It's a relic of a time when we were getting past that system. And finally, the soundtrack. It's actually fantastic. It's fanciful when it needs to be, foreboding when the story and setting demand, and mixing flights of fancy with the sheer insane. Majestic and beautiful and terrible as the dawn, adding it to the absurdism, the surreality, and the art directions that have sorely been missed from the gaming industry, and you get this charming little experience that will remind you of older cartoons and games. I was often reminded of Stupid Invaders, the point-and-click adventure title for the PC and Dreamcast. All in all, Psychonauts is imaginative, hilarious, damn near unpredictable, atmospheric, and plays like a smooth-ass dream. Each aspect serves the others, creating a game that is far more than the sum of its parts. It's really only brought down by some extra bloat that didn't need to be there, but also never actually really gets in the way of the game. It's dirt cheap now and forever, and thanks to Double Fine putting out updates some years ago, features full controller support for the PC. It's an absolute shame I missed this game for so long because goddamn is it worth your time, even if it feels a little short in the long run. I'm the TheNecroswanson, and you can go fuck yourselves.